بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه أجمعين. So Alhamdulillah, we have completed the chapter of inflections, al-i'rab, which we did a month ago, I believe. And then we started the chapter of verbs. We discussed the types of verbs. We discussed the agents that act upon the imperfect verb, the agents of jazm and the agents of nasb, and that was the end of the agents of jazm. Those were the last things that we discussed in the chapter of verbs. After that, we started the chapter of the marfu' nouns. The marfu' nouns, and I believe we started that last week. The marfu' nouns, meaning the nouns that have the inflection of noun, they have the inflection of rafa. The nouns that have the inflection of rafa. And we said that there are 7 nouns that have the inflection of rafa. If you remember, if you go back to slide 72, slide 72 starts with the first noun which has the inflection of rafa, which is the verbal subject. The verbal subject is the first noun that has the inflection of rafa. The second one is the verbal object. The verbal object whose subject is not mentioned. For example, the example that we gave was Zaid was hit. Zaid was hit, right? And this is when we say Zaid was hit, are we mentioning the subject, the verbal subject here? We're not mentioning the verbal subject, right? Zaid was probably hit by Amr as a revenge, but we're not mentioning that. So that is the verbal object whose or the object whose subject is not mentioned. And then the third one is what we call al-mubtada in Arabic. Al-mubtada is the nominal subject. It is also a subject, but it is the nominal subject. For example, if I said Allahu qadir, Allahu qadirun ala kulli shay, Allah is capable of all things. Allah is the nominal subject, is the subject of the sentence. And then the fourth one is the predicate. The predicate is also a noun that has the inflection of rafa. The example that I gave was Muhammadun sallallahu alayhi wasallam rasulun. Prophet Muhammad is a messenger. Prophet Muhammad is a messenger. And here a messenger, rasulun, is the predicate, right? Is the predicate, and it has the inflection of rafa. And then the fifth noun, that the fifth category of nouns that have the inflection of rafa are the name, or you could say the subject of Kana and her sisters. The name of Kana, or the subject of Kana and her sisters. And Kana, we have not discussed Kana yet, but inshallah we'll discuss Kana in the next few lectures. Basically, Kana is one of the, we call it an imperfect verb. It's called an imperfect verb because it requires, it is by itself, it does not, it is in need of something else. It's in need of something else to complete its meaning. And that which it's in need of are the basically its subject and predicate, or the noun and the predicate. So an example would be of kana. Kana means was. In English, we would say kana is or was. For example, kana Allahu ghafuran rahima. Allah was always forgiving and merciful. So when you say was, aren't you in need? When someone says was, like you, there is that's not complete by in itself, right? It requires something else to for that meaning to be complete. You need to mention what was, right? What was it that was? And we here Allah was always forgiving and merciful. So this falls under a category of verbs we call af'al al-naqisa, which basically translates to incomplete verbs. Incomplete verbs. And then the sixth one is the predicate of inna and her sisters. And inna is linguistically or inna. If we were to translate it to English, it would be indeed. Indeed, it is used for emphasis. It is used to strengthen the statement. So if I say Inna Allah ghafurun, when you read the Quran, you'll notice that Inna is mentioned a lot because Allah Azza wa Jal uses it a lot to emphasize what He's trying to put emphasis in what He's saying. So for example, Inna Allah ghafurun, indeed Allah is forgiving. Here the subject or the predicate of inna, which is ghafurun, is marfu, right? If you look at, I'm looking at slide 74 right now. The predicate of inna is marfu, which is ghafur. Indeed, Allah is forgiving, and ghafur means forgiving. And the seventh one, I forgot to change the numbers here. I apologize. And the seventh one is the followers. So the followers of all of these nouns, all of these marfu nouns, they're also marfu because they follow that noun. So they take its rulings and its inflections as well. So for example, if I said Ja'a Zaydun al-Qawiyyu, the strong Zayd came. Al-Qawi means strong. Because Al-Qawi is an attribute of Zayd and it follows Zayd, it takes the inflection of Zayd as well, which is what? Which is Rafa. Therefore, anything that follows a marfu' noun, anything that follows a noun that has the inflection of Rafa will also have the inflection of Rafa. Is that, I know, Brother Muhammad, I don't expect you to fully understand this, but inshallah, everyone else, are you able to, do you understand what I just said? Does this make sense, meaning? Confirmations?
I'm not responding.
I think Brother Muhammad is going to say yes, and no one else will.
What was that?
Brother, can I ask a quick question? It would have made more sense if it, kavi, it ended with kaviyun instead of kaviyu. Can you, like?
Yeah, that's a good, very good. That's very good, mashallah. So, so in Arabic, an attribute takes, like I said, takes the rulings of that which it describes. So one of the rulings, one of the characteristics of Zayd, because it is a noun, it is the name of a person. It is unambiguous. It is unambiguous, meaning it is definite. It is not indefinite, right? And a name is a definite noun, is not an indefinite noun. For example, if I said an apple, an apple can be any apple that is out there. It's not definite. When I say an apple, it doesn't point your attention to a specific apple, right? So it could be any apple. So that would be indefinite. So it's meaning it's not known. But if I said the apple, that will point your attention to a specific apple, right? The apple that you just ate, for example. So here, Zayd falls under the category of definite nouns, not indefinite nouns. Why? Even though Zayd does not have the Zayd, doesn't make sense to have the before a noun, before a name. But a name in itself is definite. It does not require anything else to be. For example, if I said Mi'rajul, everyone knows who I'm talking about. I don't have to say the Mi'rajul, right? There's only one Mi'rajul in the room, and I say Mi'rajul, everyone knows who he is. The rigid guy in the room. I'm just joking. For those who are watching the recording, it's an inside joke, which You had to be there before the recording to know what it was. So yeah, so brother Ma'rajul. So here Zaid is a name, therefore is definite. So that which you use to describe Zaid, meaning the attribute that you use to describe Zaid, also needs to be definite, right? And here, if I said qawiyun, that's indefinite. That would it means a strong person. But if I add the, which is this alif and lam, it makes it definite. So both the attribute and that which the attribute is describing match when it comes to their definiteness. Does that make sense, brother?
So yeah, yes, brother. So if we said ja'a rajulun, it would be kawiyun for rajulun,
Yes,
right? Since this is a
mashallah.
name.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You're actually way ahead of us, brother. Fahad.
Oh
That is
no,
good.
it's just a few words I remember.
Barakallah fikum. That's good because that's kind of we're gonna talk about that, but that comes maybe in the next after maybe like 5-6 lectures. But that's good. Jazakumullah khairan. It tells that you're paying good attention to the class, to the content. Not to say everyone else isn't, but this is just a few levels higher, to be honest though. Okay, so here we go back to so that was the seventh we mentioned the seventh noun which has the inflection of rafa, and that is the attribute. So if you go to slide 75, now this is the new content that we will be discussing, and this is we will be discussing the first noun that has the inflection of rafa and detail. We will be discussing the first noun that has the inflection of rafa and detail. What was the first noun that we discussed, that we mentioned? The verbal subject, right? The verbal subject. For example, if I said daraba zaydun or jalasa zaydun, Zayd sat, here Zayd is the verbal subject. Why? Because he is a subject and also there's a verb involved, and that verb is the verb of julus, or sitting. So that is what we will try to explain today. So the author rahimahullah says, باب الفاعل. الفاعل هو الاسم المرفوع المذكور قبله فعله، وهو على قسمين، ظاهر ومضمر. فالظاهر نحو قولك قام زيد ويقوم زيد، وقام الزيدان ويقوم الزيدان، وقام الزيدون ويقوم الزيدون، وقام الرجال ويقوم الرجال، وقامت هند وتقوم هند، وقامت الهندان وتقوم الهندان، وقامت الهندان وتقوم الهندان، وقامت الهندات وتقوم الهندات، وقامت الهنود وتقوم الهنود، وقام أخوك ويقوم أخوك، وقام غلام ويقوم غلامي، وما أشبه ذلك. والمضمر 12 نحو قولك ضربت وضربنا وضربت وضربت وضربتما وضربتم وضربتن وضرب وضربت وضرب وضرب وضربنا. So that was the Arabic. Now let's go back and I will translate this section by section. So what the author is saying, he is saying that the verbal subject is the marfu noun. Everyone remembers what marfu is, right? Marfu is anything that has the inflection of raf. Like mazlum is someone who has been oppressed. You guys remember the analogy that I gave?
Yes,
Yeah. Alhamdulillah. The verbal subject is the marfu noun whose verb is mentioned before it. Okay. An example would be, as I said, so now here you need to realize something, distinguish between Arabic and English. In English, a verb comes after, right? John sat. You don't say sat John. You say John sat. But in Arabic, it would be the reverse. The reverse. You would say the verb first, and then the doer or the subject. You would say jalasa Zaydun, which basically means Zayd sat, but the reverse. The verb is being mentioned first. So that is why in his definition, the author says about the verbal subject, it says it is the marfu' noun whose verb is mentioned before it, right? So we have to keep this in mind, not mix it with English, because the definition makes sense for Arabic but not for English. Does that make sense?
Yes, Sheikh.
Alhamdulillah. So the verbal subject is the marfu' noun whose verb is mentioned before it. And the example, and he will give us many examples in just a few seconds, so I won't give you any examples here. And then he says وَهُوَ عَلَى قِسْمَيْنِ ظَاهِرٌ وَمُضْمَرٌ, and the verbal subject has two types. There are two types, or has two types. Yeah, the verbal subject divides into two types: the obvious, the manifest, and the hidden. The manifest and the hidden. The manifest and the hidden. So what he means by hidden is pronouns. He means pronouns. Pronouns, the reason pronouns would be considered hidden because a pronoun does not explicitly mention a person. A person is hidden behind the word which is used for the pronoun, right? For example, if I said anta, meaning you, I am not explicitly mentioning, for example, brother Muhammad when I'm talking to him. I'm not saying Muhammad, I'm saying you. And this you is not a name designated for brother Muhammad, right? It's a pronoun that I can use for anyone. But because I'm talking to brother Muhammad, I am saying you. But so you, brother Muhammad lives within you. Lives within you hiddenly, right? Brother Muhammad is hidden within you when I say you to brother Muhammad. So that is why we would call all pronouns hidden. Mudmar, meaning they are the best translation I can think of right now is hidden. But if I said brother Muhammad, then Muhammad would be what? Muhammad is manifest. It's explicit. There's nothing hidden here. I'm explicitly mentioning and referring to brother Muhammad. So that is what he means by manifest. So a verbal subject, this is the same way. A verbal subject can be manifest or it can be hidden. For example, if I said Ja'a Zaydun, Zayd came, here Zayd is manifest, right? Zayd is not hidden. I'm explicitly mentioning Zayd. But if I just said Ja'a, which means he came, and this pronoun is hidden within Ja'a. Or if I said Ja'u, that's a better example. If I said Ja'u, meaning they came, and this pronoun is attached to this to Ja'a, the u part. In this case, the pronoun or the verbal subject is hidden because I'm not explicitly mentioning the names of all of those who came, right? I'm just mentioning a pronoun, their pronoun, which is they came. So that is what he means by a verbal subject being of two types, manifest and hidden, because sometimes a verbal subject is explicit, sometimes it is behind a pronoun. So now he will give us some examples for the manifest, and he says, and the manifest. So I'm going to translate it word by word, and then we'll explain what he means. Then the manifest such as so here is saying, now that you have known that a verbal subject has two types, then know that the manifest type of it has the following examples. So meaning the following examples are for the manifest part or type. Qama Zaydun. Qama Zaydun. Zayd got up. Zayd stood. So here, Zayd is the, what is Zayd here? Zayd is the verbal subject or not? And also, is Zayd manifest or hidden? So these are two questions for you. So it is manifest, yes. And it is also, it is a verbal subject. So it will become marfu, right?
Yeah.
يقوم زيد. يقوم زيد. يقوم زيد is what is يقوم زيد? Zayd is the, obviously is the verbal subject and also is manifest. But what's the difference between قام زيد and يقوم زيد? You guys should know this. So قام is the past tense verb, right? And يقوم is the imperfect verb. How do we know it's the imperfect verb? Because there's a ya at the beginning. Yeah, very good. So the author is giving us two examples for each, one past tense and one imperfect or present future tense. Okay, now قام الزيداني. قام وقام الزيداني. الزيداني here, who can tell me what al-Zaydani is? What does al-Zaydani mean here? This is one of the first things we talked about a long time ago. What does this alif and noon indicate? What is this? How? So you have Muslim, you have Muslimani, and then you have Muslimuna, right? Remember when we were talking about i'rab and what is the i'rab of the plural, what is the i'rab of the pronoun or the dual? So here we have Zayd and then we have az-Zaydani.
Two Zayd, yes. So the two Zayds got up. So there are two Zayds in the room and both of them got up.
Is it like then two Fahads, for example, we have here?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. It makes sense.
the quiet Fahad and the speaking Fahad.
Alhamdulillah. So
That
yeah,
can also be a manifest Fahad and hidden Fahad, no?
Yes, but from a different perspective. Yes. Alhamdulillah. So we have Yaqumu al-Zaydani. Again, the only difference here is that the first one is past tense and the second one is present future tense. And then here the same thing. Qama al-Zayduna. Al-Zayduna is, what is al-Zayduna?
Three or more Zayd.
Three or more, exactly. Three or more Zayds. Three or more Zayd. Brother Muhammad, you're on a roll. You've come very ready and punching right out of the gate. MashaAllah, that's good.
Beginner's luck, Ustaz. Beginner's luck.
I think the reason maybe because you stopped right when we were talking about these things,
and then but for everyone else, we have spoken about so much more, and it has reset at their brain. It has made them forget about the first things that we discussed. But no, but definitely still you have been away for a long time, and the fact that you actually remember this, inshallah, may Allah reward you for your dedication to our
Amin.
class.
Jazakallah khair. Amin. Inshallah.
Ameen.
Jazakallah.
So
You'll be able to catch up real soon.
inshallah.
Inshallah.
So الرجال here. Now here we remember we said there is the sound plural, and then there's the broken plural,
Yeah.
and we gave a few examples for the broken plural. الرجال, is it a sound plural or a broken plural?
It's a broken plural.
It's a broken plural because it is a plural, but it does not follow our rules, the qaida that we mentioned for the plural, right? The sound plural for males is we add a waw and a noon to it. The masculine plural is you add a waw and a noon to it. And here we're talking about the men rows. Obviously, it's masculine, but it does not follow the rules. Therefore, it is a broken plural. And we said that the rafa of a broken plural is with a dhamma. The rafa of a broken plural is with a dhamma. As again, remember I told you the first chapter will come back to us over and over again. So it was very crucial having understood and having internalized the chapter of inflections. Same here. يقوم الرجال. يقوم الرجال is the same thing, but again, it's the verbs have changed. The verbs are different. قام هند. قام هند. عفوا قامت هند, because this is. Does anyone remember what the ta does? Why do we add the ta to the past tense verb? This ta, we have not, I think we have briefly mentioned it, but this ta makes it feminine. This ta makes the past tense verb feminine. So as soon as you see this ta, you know that what comes after it is a feminine noun. So here you say qamat hindun. Qamat hindun. Hind is the name of a female, and you're saying that Hind stood. And here you're saying taqumu hindun, and the same thing, but with the imperfect verb instead of the past tense verb, right? Right, and then here you say qamatil hindanu. What's the difference between Hind and Hindan? One of them is
Dual again, isn't it?
yes, one of yes. So al-Hindan is the dual. Al-Hindan is the dual. And is marfu' because it has alif and it has an alif, right? This alif makes it marfu', right? This alif makes it marfu'. If it was ya, it would be majroor. Then you would know it's not the verbal subject, because we're talking about the verbal subject, and we said the verbal subject is one of the nouns that has the inflection of rafa. So when you say qamatil hindanu, even if you did not know the meaning of qamat, you would immediately know al-hindan, because it comes after a verb, regardless of whether you know what the meaning of that verb is or not. You would know that because of the alif, you would know that hindan is the verbal subject. And then the same thing taqumu, but this is with the imperfect verb, right? And then you have qamatil hindatu. What is al-hindat? This is a tricky question. It's not that tricky, but it's a bit different. Al-hindatu, what is this? What does alif and ta indicate?
Plural female, was it?
Yes, plural female, yes. Yes, so Barakallah fikum. Al-Hindatu means many hens. The hens came. I guess there are all of the people who have the name Hind got on Facebook and made a group with and then they all decided to meet up somewhere, and they all stood at the same time. Yeah, I'm just making that's the only way that this would make sense, right? Qamatil Hindatu. Qamatil Hindatu. All the hens stood. وَتَقُومُ الْهِنْدَاتِ, and here the only difference is that we're using the imperfect verb. وَقَامَتِ الْهُنُودُ. So hunud is the same thing. It's a plural, but it is the broken plural. So hind can both has a sound plural and it has a broken plural. And here al-hunud is the broken plural. That is why the inflection is with a dhamma. The inflection of rafa is a dhamma because it is a broken plural. وَتَقُومُ الْهُنُودُ, the same thing. The inflection is dhamma. وَقَامَ أَخُوكَ. Now, he has given us examples for past tense, for imperfect. He has given us examples for feminine examples and masculine examples. He has given us examples for the dual, for the plural, and for the singular. Now he's going to give us examples for the exceptional nouns. Remember we said there are 5 exceptional nouns. Akhuka, abuka, fuka, hamuka, wadu, right? And here he is given an example for one of those, which is akhuka. And he's telling us qama akhuka. Here akhuka is the verbal subject. How do we know akhuka is marfu'? I'll give you a hint.
Yeah.
The wow, right? Yeah. So the wow makes an exceptional noun marfu', and alif makes it mansub, and ya makes it majrur. So here, akhuka, your brother, is marfu'. وَقَامَ غُلَامِي. قَامَ غُلَامِي. And here he gives us an example of a verbal subject whose inflection is implicit. Remember we said inflections can be either explicit or implicit. That was when we gave the definition of inflections. We said al-i'rabu. What was who remembers the definition of inflections? Al-i'rabu taghyiru. Yes, go ahead.
Sheikh, I was saying that the change would be quite profound. I mean, the original word, the end of the original word would be changed with a, explicit inflection, Arab, but the one that's not explicit, you haven't probably explained that to us. You said that you're gonna later go into a deep dive into it.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, there's going to be a profound change at the end with an inflection whenever we have an inflection.
Exactly. You're right. I remember saying that. I will explain this later. Maybe at this time we can to explain it, because at this point. So, an explicit, as you said, brother Marajul, an explicit inflection is an inflection that is there. You can see it as manifest. For example, the dhammas here, the alifs for the duals, the waws for the plural, the waw for the exceptional noun, the alif and the ta for the feminine plural. These are all explicit inflections. I'm not the alif and ta, the dhamma for, because the feminine plural, its inflection is with the dhamma, right? So the waw, the dhamma, these are all explicit inflections. But with an implicit yes.
I don't know if this is like the case, because I kind of noticed something about implicit inflections. Is it like I don't know if this is one of the examples. Is it like once it's the process of elimination, like there are some things that are explained, but then if nothing is explained for this specific inflection, that means that's that's its sign, or for the inflection. I don't know if that's one of the things.
Well, I guess I would need to know like exactly what you mean, but in a sense, I guess that would make sense, because like obviously, if you don't see, if you know a noun is a verbal subject, but you don't see any of the signs of rafa on it, then you know that it is one of the types of implicit inflections. And there are three reasons why an inflection can be implicit. And I will explain one of the reasons why it can be explicit today, which is in ghulami. So ghulami, this ya here, this ya is actually a pronoun. This ya is a pronoun. What is this pronoun? This pronoun is the pronoun of mine. You say my pen, right? My pen, with like this my is a pronoun, right? But it also indicates that something belongs to you. So gulami means my servant. My servant got up. So this ya, if we added the inflection that is supposed to be here, what inflection is supposed to be here? Ghulam is a singular noun. What inflection does a singular noun have for rafa? Or what is the sign? Yeah, obviously the inflection would be rafa. What is the sign of rafa in ghulami? What is the sign of
Dhammatin.
rafa in dham? That's exactly dhammatain. Yeah, very good. But do you guys see dhammatain here?
Nope.
No. Why? Because if we were to add a dhammatain and also add the ya, which this ya means my, it would not. It would be very heavy on the tongue. It would be ghulamuni, right? Or if we just added dhamma, it would be ghulamuyi, right? And Arabs don't like pronouncing things weirdly. They want things to be as smooth as possible. They don't like things to be heavy on the tongue. So in this situation, they said, because ya, what is the letter that suits ya? What is the diacritic that suits ya the most? Who knows? What is the haraka, the diacritical mark? We have fatha, kasra, and dhamma. Who said kasra?
Fahad Haider.
Barakallah fiqh. Exactly, kasra.
Sheikh,
Kasra is actually...
probably the reason is gulami. I mean, the word is already ending with an e, and ya starts with iya. So both are,
Yeah.
there is a connection between the e, the ending of gulami, and the beginning of ya, yi. So I think that's the reason it's ending with a kasra rather than any other diacritical marks.
Exactly.
I remember you talking about how the kasra is like the easiest to pronounce, if I'm correctly. The easiest to pronounce.
Fatha is the most light on the tongue. But kasra is whenever you want to give haraka to something that is silent, you give it a kasra. But so that I did mention that, Brother Khadruddin. But as far as here, what Brother Fahd said is because the thing, the diacritical mark that suits ya the most is a kasra, and this goes to what Brother Mi'rajul said as well. It suits basically what you said. You said there is a connection between the end, the ya part, and then the kasra part. Yes, we want to make that connection, and that is what we want to make sure that the haraka that is at the end of ghulam suits the sound that ya makes, right?
A smooth transition between the two.
A smooth transition, exactly. So whenever we add the pronoun ya, which means mine or my, we add a kasra to the end of a word instead of dhamma if it is marfu, or instead of a fatha if it's mansub, right? So here the inflection becomes implicit because the al-dhamma is not explicitly there, but you and I know that there is a dhamma there. It's just that we removed it and we changed it to a kasra just so it suits the ya, right? So the dhamma or the inflection of rafa is implicitly there, but it's not explicit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Sheikh. Sheikh, what's the original form of the word again? Gulam?
Qama ghulamun. Qama ghulamun. Yeah, it's just like this.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's I mean, if we isolate the word, it would still be gulamun, or how would we?
No, so we don't.
Gulam.
I mean, we don't write it like this. It would also always be like this. I mean,
Oh.
writing it like this wouldn't make sense. Yeah.
No, I mean, Sheikh,
Right.
without the, I mean, if the
Without
word
the yeah.
gulam, how do we write or pronounce the word if we do not have anything before it?
Yeah, and anything after it, we say qama ghulamun. If the ya is not attached, you would say qama ghulamun wa yaqumu ghulamun. But if there's nothing before it, well, inflections only make sense if something comes before it, right?
Yeah.
And that is why Imam Al-Zamakhshari, who is one of the greatest Arab linguists, basically in his book Al-Anmudhaj, he makes it very clear that inflections are as a result of the agents that come before him. So if you just say ghulam without anything else, it doesn't make sense to say it has any inflections, because the ghulam in your statement is not a noun, it's not a subject, it's not a predicate, it's not a doer, it's not an object, it's nothing. So it doesn't get any inflections. But if you have qama ghulam, if you have a verb before it, obviously it will be a verbal subject, and you will say qama ghulamun.
All right.
And here, the same thing, qama ghulami, with the exception that we are using the imperfect verb. وَمَا أَشْبَهَ ذَلِكَ, and anything that resembles what we have discussed. So we just gave you some examples. Now, instead of Zaidan, you can use Muslim, for example. You say قَامَ مُسْلِمٌ يَقُومُ مُسْلِمٌ وَقَامَ مُسْلِمَانِ وَيَقُومُ مُسْلِمَانِ. So you can apply any word that you want here. You're not specific to these examples, right? So now you know how it works. Now you can actually use these examples to actually come up with more examples of your own. Okay, so the homework for next week. The homework for next week is for you to come up with your own examples for all of these that we have mentioned. Come up with your own examples, right? And you can use the previous examples that I gave. You can use whatever is at your disposal. You can use the Quran. You can use whatever you want to come up for your own example for every single example that he gives. Okay. So inshallah, this will. I think this is enough. Even though I don't know, even though the content that we read was not that much, I think it entailed a lot of knowledge. It entailed a lot of information. So I will leave it. We won't mention the pronouns today. For next week, inshallah, I want you guys to come up with your own examples, and there will be a pub quiz, verbal quiz, not written quiz. I'll just ask each person one single question. Okay, so inshallah, I will translate all of them into English before the end of today. I won't promise immediately after the lecture, but the lesson, but I will do it today, inshallah. And for next week, as you said, come up with your own examples and email them to me before the class. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, Sheikh. The three pronouns, alif, waw, ya. I mean, could you just let us know the meaning of these three pronouns when they appear you know, as an non-explicit inflection.
Mhm. So the only pronoun that will come at the end of a word by itself, uh, basically, so the waw and the waw are pronouns in a verb, right? For example, you say qama, meaning the two men stood, or qamu, the men, all of the men stood. One of them is the two, and the other one is they, and it is always attached to a verb. But ya is a pronoun that is a bit different. It's not the same pronoun as the pronoun alif and waw and verbs. Ya means basically it indicates um, possession, belonging to the person who is talking, which in English it means my. It means, for example, if I said my pen, I would say qalami in Arabic. Qalami would yeah. So that's the only at this point that is yeah. So at this point, that is the only one you need to know. But next week, inshallah, we'll dive into pronouns more. Next week
Okay.
we'll talk about pronouns. So but for now, you just know that yeah, it means mine, and it is always attached to nouns and not verbs.
All right.
Yeah is a pronoun that is attached to nouns and not verbs.
But Sheikh, ya does appear with the verbs, right? I mean, I've written something over here. It's alif waw ya. I mean, I've written that alif waw ya. One of it always ends. I mean, these three appears with the 5 verbs at the end of the 5 verbs.
Yeah.
So
So yeah. So when you say taktubina, for example, the you write for a female. When you talk to a female and you say to her you write, that ya is the feminine pronoun. But this pronoun is a bit different. The pronoun that you have in Ghulami, this pronoun of possession is not specific to males or females. Both can use it, and it always comes at the end of a noun. So we're talking about two different yas here. Yes, that ya
got
that
it,
you're
Sheikh.
referring to is in verbs, but not in nouns. Yes.
Yeah, got it.
Brothers. So
Yes.
I have a question. So you know how we talked about the father, the brother, the in-law, and the possessor, right?
Yeah.
I,
Lu.
I
Yeah.
forgot the other one. What was it? The father, the brother, the
Then
in-law.
your mouth and then the possession.
Yeah, yeah.
Lu.
Sure.
Possession.
What's the difference between the possessor and the pronoun of belonging? So what's the difference?
So so that lu is actually just an example um that so when you say ghulami, you're actually referring to yourself. You say
Yeah,
my servant, or qalami, you're saying my pen. But if you say du qalam, you're actually referring to a third person. You're saying that person possesses a qalam. So that's the difference between the siya and when you say du. And also, du is not a pronoun. Du is an explicit statement. You're saying he possesses, he owns, right? So that explicit statement is present in du. Du in itself means possessing something, but ya simply means mine, right? When you say mine, is there an explicit word? Uh, do you explicitly say I possess? Do you explicitly say I own? No, but simply by saying mine, and the pronoun that exists in my pen, you're saying that that pen belongs to me. Does that make sense?
yeah, I gotcha. So pretty much the yeah indicates like individual like me, for instance. This pen belongs.
Yeah.
And then the possessor example talks about another person entirely possessing something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And one of them is explicit, the other one is implicit. The lu is explicit, my is implicit.
That's good to know. That's interesting.
Yeah. Or I would say explicit and hidden, or manifest and hidden, as the author describes it. Yeah. So that's a good question. Barakallah fikum. Any other questions? So if no other questions, inshallah, we'll end our lecture today. May Allah reward all of you. And Brother Muhammad, have fun for all of us in Istanbul. Enjoy yourself for all of us. We're all in quarantine. We can.
Inshallah. I'll try my best.
He has been enjoying the entire month, right? The last month when he wasn't attending the class. So,
I was honestly, no, I could not enjoy because we had to do so much work.
Yeah, I know you told me. Yeah, I was just kidding.
Alhamdulillah. جزاكم الله خيرا. سبحان
Okay.
ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه أجمعين.